And welcome. So glad to see you all here, and we will go ahead and get started. My name is Carol Kaufman, and I am the Executive Director for the Ohio Environmental Council. Good afternoon. It's just been tremendous getting to know so many of you this year since I joined the organization in March. As many of you know, our annual meeting provides an important opportunity to look back over this past year and share stories of progress we've made alongside members just like you. As I spent some time reflecting on 2023, I really concluded that this has been a year of paradox, of very different kinds of news and accomplishments and challenges as we've gone along. So, I will be the first to acknowledge that as we look back, there's an alarming heaviness in some of the news that we have experienced and the events that we've experienced. There's no doubt that climate change is here, and it is negatively impacting the health of our communities and our environment. This summer, we experienced some of the worst air quality ever on record as wildfire smoke made its way across the continent and our own Buckeye State. We also saw the train derailment and toxic chemical spill in East Palestine happen earlier this year, and it tragically upended the lives of many people living in that community, which for too long has been harmed by extractive fossil fuel and polluting industry. And the OEC continues to work with our partners on the ground and residents who are fighting for transparency, accountability, and justice in that situation. This year, we also saw that despite enormous public resistance, our state's leaders continue to press forward with plans to frack our state parks and forests. And we will continue to work alongside Ohioans like you to protect our beloved public lands. But I promise you, it is not all doom and gloom. As I look back on this year, I also feel a real sense of determined hopefulness. So while the climate crisis is here, so are the solutions. The OEC is proud to collaborate with our partners and decision makers to put unprecedented federal investments to work in Ohio communities. This includes working alongside many of the local elected leaders with whom we've built strong relationships. After years of advocacy at the federal level, our team has helped to secure important federal regulations this year. Even this morning, the US EPA announced updated rules that will provide safer drinking water to Ohio families. And we expect to hear any moment about new efforts to reduce harmful methane emissions. This year, we worked alongside our partners and members to defend Ohio's democracy from an extreme power grab. Alongside more than 250 other organizations and thousands of Ohioans, we overwhelmingly defeated attempts to end Ohio's 100-plus-year-old tradition of majority rule. This effort was a critical step in securing a healthy democracy, which enables us to fight for a healthy environment. And on a personal note, this year I was thrilled to join the OEC as Executive Director in March. Every day I'm filled with hope as I work with a world-class team of staff and partners in pursuit of clean air, safe water, vibrant public lands, and a strong democracy for all who call Ohio home. It is a true honor to work for an advocacy organization that Ohioans have been able to count on for more than 50 years. While our steadfast presence is important, it's just one aspect of how we persist. Thanks to the support of our members like you, we're able to put our policy, legal, and communications expertise to work every day at all levels of government to secure important wins for Ohio. On behalf of my colleagues, I want to let you know how deeply we value our partnerships with members, with organizations, and with decision makers in order to address the most pressing environmental and climate issues that Ohio communities face. We must work together. And finally, from resounding victories at the ballot box to important policy and legal wins, our collective advocacy and engagement efforts are making a difference. Together, we can and will continue to make progress. So at this time, I'm going to hand it off to our talented staff to share their stories of persistence, partnership, and progress with you. And as a reminder, just as in years past, we will have opportunity for questions following these presentations. So please do use the Q&A function on the Zoom to share your questions as they come up. All right, I'm handing things off to you, Nathan.
Thank you, Carol. I'm Nathan Johnson. I'm the Senior Attorney for Land and Water. And persistence is a critical part of our public lands work. We use every tool in our toolbox, often over several years, to protect Ohio's environment. Today, I'd like to share two examples of our persistence in this work. And I'll start out at the state level. For 12 years now and counting, the OEC has been fighting to protect Ohio's state public lands from fracking. This fight has never been more intense than it is right now. At the end of last year, legislators rushed an unconstitutional bill through lame duck session, House Bill 507, which opened state parks to oil and gas leasing. Following the OEC Action Fund's advocacy against this bill and our call for a veto, the bill passed, unfortunately, and was signed into law by Governor DeWine. But we didn't stop there. In April, the OEC and our partners filed a lawsuit against 507. And through the summer, we worked alongside amazing grassroots advocates and members like you to speak out against fracking our state parks. We marshaled the science on health and climate in our technical comments. We rallied at Salt Fork State Park and the State House, and we helped uncover a fossil fuel industry effort to flood the Leasing Commission with fake public comments. Despite enormous public resistance statewide and a pending Ohio Attorney General investigation into these fake industry comments, the Oil and Gas Land Management Commission voted earlier this month to open Ohio's largest state park, Salt Fork, to oil and gas leasing. The commission's decision to lease is deeply disappointing, and it's also unlawful. And that is why today we are filing a complaint in state court along with our partner Earth Justice. We're challenging the commission's decision to open Salt Fork to fracking. And I'm happy to say that the fight for Ohio state parks continues. There'll be a lot more to come and to say on this lawsuit as it continues, and really excited that we're filing in court today. So that's a really great example at the state level, a battle that's taken many years and that continues with a major development today as well. I'll circle over to the federal side where we've been very busy as well. And again, it's an effort that's gone on for many years, this time with the Wayne National Forest, where in 2018, we learned that the Sunny Oaks logging project sought to clear cut thousands of acres of the National Forest. So over the next 3 years, we submitted public comments in defense of the forest and with the help of the public. When U.S. Forest Service opened the project for bidding, the OEC filed a lawsuit in federal district court. We've now been litigating that case for 3 years, and in March, we argued in front of the judge. We're pleased to share that we won the case. This August, the court issued an injunction on the majority of the logging project and sent it back to the agency for more environmental analysis. There's some really great trees still standing down in that part of the Wayne National Forest. And that's thanks to our persistence and dedication over the past 6 years. And pardon my dog, I guess she's excited about it too. So with that, really excited to share. Like Carol said, there may be some gloom and doom out there, but there are victories and some great things happening as well. And with that, I will hand it off to Melanie Houston, OEC's Managing Director of Water Policy.
Thank you, Nathan. Hello, everyone. Thanks for being with us this afternoon. Our work around the state to secure clean water from source to tap takes persistence and many partnerships. And today I'd like to share 2 stories with you of that partnership in action. So if you've joined an annual meeting previously, you've likely heard us talk about the H2 Ohio program. This is a multi-million-dollar science-based program to support improved water quality in Ohio. This program launched in 2019 as a result of strong partnerships and continues to build on those today. In 2023, the H2 Ohio program resulted in 1.4 million acres of farmland enrolled in voluntary nutrient management plans. 706 lead water lines replaced across Ohio, and nearly 16,000 acres of wetland ecosystem restoration. And during this year's state budget process, we at OEC and with the Action Fund successfully advocated for additional funding for the H2 Ohio program. Happy to report that we helped secure nearly $270 million in total. That was an unprecedented amount of funding for fiscal years 2024 and 2025. This investment includes funds for 3 key agencies. First, the Ohio Department of Agriculture, which is working to reduce agricultural phosphorus runoff through conservation programs with farmers. Also, the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, which is focused on expanding its successful wetland restoration program with communities, and the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency, which is working on continuing to improve Ohio's wastewater and drinking water infrastructure, including those very important lead service line replacements with municipalities across the state. Additionally, I'm excited to share that there is a new arm or program of H2 Ohio, which is the Rivers Initiative. And this initiative will work to protect and restore Ohio's riverways, including assessing emerging contaminants and strategically removing dams, and also more water quality monitoring. I had the personal privilege of hearing firsthand about the new Rivers Initiative during the governor's State of the State address on Cap Square this past January. So that was a fun moment. I got to meet the governor afterward and shake his hand and thank him and the First Lady for these investments. Speaking of rivers, for decades, scientists have recognized the Big and Little Darby Creeks as some of the most biologically diverse streams of their size, not just in central Ohio, but in the entire Midwest, if not the nation. And I don't know about you, but I personally love visiting and taking my kids to adventure in and along the Darby Creek. Advocates have long recognized that without stronger protections, we'll lose this outstanding ecological integrity, also the breathtaking beauty, and the numerous recreational opportunities of these creeks. That's why the OEC and our partners began pushing for protections in the 1970s, and then why we came together again in early 2023 to really prioritize this work and to call on the Ohio EPA to designate, the Big and Little Darby Creeks as outstanding national resource waters. This is a designation that provides some of the strongest protection under the Clean Water Act. Several organizations and thousands of people submitted public comments in support of this designation for the creeks. And I'm happy to report that because of our collective advocacy, in the fall, this past fall, the Ohio EPA announced a rulemaking process to essentially signal the classification of Big and Little Darby Creeks as outstanding national resource waters. Our team worked together to drive an additional 800 comments in support of that designation. So I do want to take a minute to acknowledge the amazing work of our attorneys on staff here, especially Nathan Johnson, whom you've just heard from, and Chris Tavner, whom you'll be hearing from, and our wonderful communications team. I also want to thank you, our members and supporters. Because of your support and the hard work of my colleagues, the Darby is better protected for my kids and your kids and family members and our future generations. So thank you for your attention, and I'd like to now hand it off to Chris Tavner, OEC Associate General Counsel and Managing Director of Democracy Policy.
Thanks, Melanie. So while we've been talking about persistence and partnerships, I'd like to talk about progress we're making to accelerate our state's just transition to a clean energy future, despite many legislative roadblocks at the state level. If you don't know me, I'm Chris Tavner, OEC's Associate General Counsel. I have the privilege to work really closely with our energy team, Nolan and Karen, who unfortunately cannot join us today as they're off doing great work right now. It's that work I'll talk about on their behalf as a member of the team who has the opportunity to support them as they face incredible challenges to reduce Ohio's contributions to climate change. Over the past year, Karen Nordstrom, our clean energy attorney, has intervened to the OEC in numerous Public Utilities Commission and Power Siting Board cases, all designed to hold our electric utilities accountable and to advocate for renewable energy. At the Public Utilities Commission, we are working in a post-House Bill 6 world, Where the specter of bribery of legislators still looms, yet opportunities exist to save Ohioans money and reduce carbon emissions. And we're making great progress. Our intervention in AEP Ohio's recent case, for instance, helped forge an agreement that is a good first step towards more utility accountability and improved grid stability. Instead of the proposed 13% increase over 6 years, AEP Ohio is only raising rates 4.5% over the next 4 years. At the Ohio Power Siting Board, we're working in a post-Senate Bill 52 world, a bill that made it possible for counties to outright ban solar and wind, though they can't ban fossil fuels. In that context, we were proud to support several OEC members in raising their voice in support of renewable energy projects right in their backyards. We intervened in support of the 144 megawatt Blossom Solar Project in Morrow County, which had overwhelming local support, as well as the 140 megawatt Dixon Run Solar Project in Jackson County, which will be built on a brownfield site previously used for surface strip mining. Both of those projects are moving forward. This year, the Ohio Supreme Court also unanimously agreed that the 300 megawatt Emerson Creek Wind Farm project was correctly certified by the Ohio Power Siting Board and can now begin construction in Erie and Huron counties. OEC's legal team, we submitted supporting arguments for this court case that made an impact on the decision. We're also anxiously waiting to hear next steps from the board for the 800 megawatt Oak Run solar project in which we intervened. Oak Run will be one of the largest solar facilities in the country. I think it's in the top 10, and if approved and constructed. Importantly, Oak Run features agrivoltaics. So that's where solar generation shares land with agriculture, such as grazing animals or specific crops. Right now, the Ohio Power Siting Board takes public input very seriously, whether in how they craft their regulations or in how they make decisions on particular projects. Hundreds of OEC members like you weighed in on Power Siting Board rules last year, and those comments ensured that solar development wasn't unreasonably restricted. Your voice has power in these cases too. When OEC members speak up for solar projects in their community, the board listens, just as they're listening to opposition. Utility scale wind and solar projects are an excellent source of renewable energy for the state of Ohio that benefit our local economies and decrease Ohio's carbon footprint. Your support of our advocacy and your own advocacy has been critical and will be more critical over the next few years as the board considers more and more projects. And in order to decrease Ohio's carbon footprint, it is also critical that Ohio's transition away from fossil fuels continues. So this past year, the OEC continued to lead advocacy efforts to cut dangerous methane emissions, which exacerbate climate change and cause severe health impacts within our communities. During the state budget process in 2023, the OEC joined a coalition of unlikely allies to protect critical dollars that are largely used to cap orphaned oil and gas wells through the Ohio Department of Natural Resources Ohio Oil and Gas Well Fund. Not only is this program one of the oldest and most successful programs in the country, but there's also a great need to plug more than 20,000 orphan wells across Ohio to stop the release of methane and other chemical pollution into our environment. The state effort to curb methane pollution has been further enhanced by federal actions over the past year. And we are expecting, I think it was mentioned earlier, we are hoping that we get some numbers by this meeting, but we're expecting an announcement from the federal government today about money that's going to be funding additional methane pollution work. I'd like to thank the energy team again for their tireless work and the opportunity to speak on their behalf today. Karen and Nolan are rock stars doing incredible work for the OEC and for the state as a whole. So that's what we have for energy today. I would like to now hand it off to Pete Booker, our Chief of Staff.
Thank you, Chris. Well, to put a finer point on some federal victories, I wanted to touch back on the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act. They've both sparked unprecedented investments aimed at addressing climate change and ensuring a healthier environment for all Ohioans. As of just last month, $10.4 billion in bipartisan infrastructure law funding has been announced for Ohio, with over 332 specific projects identified for that funding. And the Inflation Reduction Act has already spurred more than $8 billion in investment and helped create or advance more than 5,400 good-paying clean energy jobs right here in the Buckeye State. Importantly, these historic investments and these pieces of legislation are improving lives of Ohioans by replacing lead service lines, growing tree canopy in our communities, increasing the energy efficiency of homes and businesses across the state, decarbonizing buildings, accelerating the transition to electric vehicles, providing clean energy and workforce development opportunities for Ohioans. These investments are particularly for our local communities across the state, where we're seeing great progress on climate action at the local level. To speak more about this, I'll hand things over to Emily Baca, our Vice President of Public Affairs.
Thanks, Pete. Hello, everyone. It's so great to be with you today. And like Chris, I have the distinct pleasure of sharing some stories from our field advocacy staff about their great work across the state. Together, our field advocacy team aims to expand the network of locally elected environmental champions, galvanize local environmental policy progress, and build equitable partnerships with frontline organizations across the state. And when it comes to climate action at the local level, there are quite a few highlights to share. So we're proud to support local leaders who are just getting started in this work. For example, under the new leadership of Mayor-elect Shamus Malik in Akron, they're planning to hire their first director of sustainability in 2024. Several communities in the Mahoning Valley are also looking to spark their work on climate action planning. This work to support kind of up and coming work is important. It takes persistence, consistently showing up, checking in on progress, providing resources, and making connections. And I want to shout out and thank our Northeastern Ohio Regional Director, Christopher Colon, for doing this important work in region. Similarly, OEC's Southeastern Ohio Regional Director, Molly Jo Stanley, has been leading this work in their region. They've hosted important conversations in the community on the historic environmental justice impacts of extractive industries, as well as the current cost of climate change on municipalities. They've engaged local elected officials in discussions related to sustainability, emergency management planning, and community forestry. And they're consistently building relationships with partners to advance this work across the region. Speaking of partners, OEC's Cleveland Metro Advocacy Director, Brian Siggers, regularly convenes partner organizations to collaborate and strategically advance work around policy platforms for the city of Cleveland and Cuyahoga County that were developed in years past. Over this past year, he's helped facilitate important conversations between community partners and administrative leaders, including Cleveland's Mayor Justin Bibb, Cuyahoga County Executive Chris Ronayne, and others. We were pleased to present on these efforts at the City of Cleveland's inaugural Greater Cleveland Decarbonization Summit this past spring, and at a meeting with the U.S. Department of Energy Director of Diversity and Economic Impact, Shalonda Baker, as well. And I think to round us out on the work of our field advocacy team, I want to share an example from Southwest Ohio. Earlier this year, the city of Cincinnati unanimously adopted its 2023 Green Cincinnati Plan. And our Southwestern Ohio Regional Director, Kylie Johnson, was a critical part of this effort. She was selected to lead the Community Activation Subcommittee. All in all, over 1,600 residents participated in over 40 public meetings, including 150 residents from frontline communities. The committee synthesized more than 3,000 resident comments and recommendations into 40 high-impact emission reduction strategies. And while these are a lot of numbers, I share them because it speaks to the importance of meeting community where they are, hearing and really listening and incorporating those recommendations into equitable climate action plans that are going to drive progress across the states. I know that Kylie continues to build upon this great work, mentioning all of the work that went into the Green Cincinnati Plan as she meets with local elected leaders and consistently showing up there as well. Each of our regional directors are with us today, so if you have questions for them, I encourage you to add those to the Q&A, and we'd be happy to answer more about our work around the state when it comes to climate action and civic engagement. And with that, I'll pass it back over to Chris Tabner to talk a little bit more about our work in democracy.
Thanks, Emily. So putting my democracy hat on after I was talking about the work of our energy team, I'm excited to share all about the huge win we saw in Ohio for our democracy this year, which was the defeat of Issue 1 on the August special election. It's a story that truly reflects the power of Ohioans and their desire to have a democracy that works for them rather than for politicians. Over the past year, Ohioans fought unprecedented, persistent attacks on our democracy, and really more than just the past year, but it got especially harsh this past year. So we've been seeing extreme politicians and corrupt special interests attempt to end Ohio's 100-plus-year-old tradition of majority rule and make it even more difficult for Ohioans to place issues on the ballot. During the 134th General Assembly lame duck session, we were able to take quick action, coordinate with partners, and organize hundreds of Ohioans to defeat these anti-democracy efforts. Unfortunately, when lawmakers returned to the State House in early 2023, they passed similar legislation and created an August special election in an attempt to sneak the issue right past voters, because not everyone votes in August special elections is what they thought, but they were quite wrong about that. Ohioans overwhelmingly stopped them and decisively voted down this bad constitutional amendment. This was a long fight. For those of you who attended our annual meeting last year, you might remember me calling in from the Ohio General Assembly, where I was at hearings during lame duck on both this issue and other anti-democracy bills, but we won. When we're seeing constant erosions of democracy in Ohio and other places, defeating issue 1 is a big deal. I cannot overstate how much of a team effort this was, both from OEC staff, but also the incredible network of advocacy organizations that came together as the One Person, One Vote campaign. But more importantly, this was a win for all of us who are Ohio voters. We stood together and emphatically protected our right to direct democracy on the ballot. In an August special election, we saw 37% voter turnout, which is an election that usually sees single-digit percentage turnout. And we defeated issue 1 of 57% to 43%. I genuinely encourage everyone listening today to reflect on the power of our collective vote. This is what democracy looks like when we come together across political divides and make a stand for what we believe should be our fundamental rights. It's encouraging to see 57% of Ohioans agree that our right to direct democracy should remain fully intact. Defeating issue 1 in August was a critical step in securing a healthy democracy, which equips us to fight for a healthy environment. The OEC was proud to work in that coalition with more than 250 organizations and thousands of dedicated Ohioans to educate and engage voters across the state ahead of the August special election. Your support enabled the OEC to reach millions of Ohioans through print and digital communications, events across the state, and important conversations, including a live stream with House Minority Leader Allison Russo. Protecting Ohio's environment and defending our democracy is a team effort. That's why we're going to need Ohioans just like you over the next year. The OEC is proud to support the Citizens Not Politicians campaign to create an independent citizen redistricting commission through a new ballot initiative, the right that we were protecting by stopping issue 1. The past 2 years of redistricting decisions from the Ohio Supreme Court and Ohio Redistricting Commission, where the two bodies have played ping pong with our right to representation, has demonstrated a crystal clear truth. Ohioans should draw their own maps, not politicians. The Citizens Not Politicians Amendment does just that, creating an independent commission made up of 5 Republicans, 5 Democrats, and 5 independents, all who cannot have ever run for office or been a lobbyist, as well as a number of other requirements. Regular people will be given the resources to draw the maps we deserve with guidance and rules designed to ensure communities are truly represented rather than divided for partisan gain. The campaign is just beginning. This week, they just started gathering signatures for the amendment to be on the ballot in November, and the OEC is excited to gather signatures ourselves. So you can sign up to be a part of this story too, where we finally rewrite the rules of redistricting in Ohio. In the chat, you should see a link to join our Democracy and Environment Action Team. We'll be holding trainings in January and throughout the year to equip you and other Ohioans to gather signatures. We hope to see you there. Together, we will continue to use our collective power to ensure a stronger democracy that works for every Ohioan, their communities, and our environment. The defeat of issue 1 was Act 1 in that story. The Citizens Not Politicians Amendment is Act 2. We're excited to have you join us as the story unfolds. And you'll need to stick around to find out what Act 3 will be, but we got to win Act 2 first. So with that, I'd like to invite our Vice President of Advancement, Dina Seco, to share more about how you can support this effort and all of our good work at the OEC.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that and all of your good work. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us and for your support of the important work that we do. My role here at OEC is to ensure that our expert staff that you've been hearing from today have the resources needed to execute the critical programming that we do with and on behalf of Ohioans. The OEC is able to do all of this work because of your support. We are funded by Ohioans across the state who care about these issues that impact us all, and it will take all of us to accomplish our big goals together. So as you've heard from our program leaders today, we have a lot of work ahead in our efforts to secure a strong democracy and a healthy environment for all Ohioans. So to briefly recap, I'll summarize what we're planning to do so that you have a good understanding of the impact of your contributions. One, we want to make progress towards ending gerrymandering in Ohio. We want to ensure the historic federal investments that were made in clean energy and infrastructure are implemented right here in Ohio, and that the leaders are listening to our communities and they're focusing those investments in the places that need it most. We also plan to continue our efforts to decrease Ohio's carbon footprint. We want to continue our legal battles to protect our state parks from fracking. And we also plan to continue pushing to extend protections for the waterways that we depend on for both drinking and recreation. While our opponents to much of this progress are some of the wealthiest adversaries out there, I'm talking about fossil fuel interests and some of the corrupt utility companies in Ohio, there are a whole lot more of us than there are of them. So we are asking that you consider taking this opportunity to set us on a strong path as we head into 2024 by making a donation today and investing in the future of our collective movement. For those of you who haven't yet, this is a great time to renew your annual membership. You can also make a special gift if you've already renewed your membership this year. Your support is going to help us maintain our ongoing campaigns that you've been hearing about today, and you've also will help us kickstart the collective vision that we're creating together ahead. So thank you again for your time and for your investment. This truly is a team effort, and we couldn't do this work without you all. Carol, I'm going to send it back to you.
Thank you, Dina, and to everyone else who shared all of these incredible stories of progress this year. I'll go off script here just for a moment, and I apologize in advance, Emily, but I was really reflecting as Dina was talking about all the importance of membership and supporting this work, why I made that decision. So for many years before I ever came onto the staff with the OEC, I was a member and I donated monthly because I felt it was so important. I'm going back to my remarks at the beginning of this hour to just invest in hopefulness and invest in progress, even when challenges are difficult, they're long-term, you have temporary setbacks. I knew that the OEC was the organization that is making a difference consistently in Ohio for all Ohioans, regardless of where they live and what their circumstances are. So I encourage you all to join me in investing in that determined hopefulness again this year. All right, so I'm going to transition to a couple of business items. First of all, we want to take a moment to acknowledge some of our board members. In particular, we have a few who are rotating off of the board this year as their term limits have ended. So none of the amazing work that you are hearing about today is possible without our full team, and that does include our OEC board of directors. So I do want to thank three incredible members that are departing us, Peter Griesinger, Krista McGaugh, and Graham Mitchell. They've all tirelessly served our organization, our staff, and the entire state of Ohio for many years. I just cannot thank you enough for the time that you've spent helping us to shape the OEC's policy, priorities, and plans, and secure a healthier environment for all Ohioans. We wish you the best in your future endeavors. We know that you're going to stay connected to the work and to the mission in the years to come, and we're so appreciative of your work. If you know them, please feel free to share an appreciation in the chat. All right, and before we jump into that question and answer period that we promised we would create time for at the end, I do want to invite everyone on the call that is an OEC member to cast your ballot for our board of directors. So as a reminder, our organizational bylaws require that OEC members vote each year at this annual meeting on members whose terms are expiring and on any new members that are joining the board that year. So look in the chat. We will be dropping a link for voting into the chat momentarily. Again, if you are an OEC member, please take a moment to complete that vote. All right, and we are going to go ahead and take a few questions for our OEC staff members. I think we've already seen several popping into the chat. So I will start with the first question from Bruce Murray, and I think Chris Tabner will be able to answer this one. So Bruce asks, the University of Dayton and Oberlin College have achieved fossil fuel divestment. It looks like students at other colleges like Case and OSU are calling for the same. So what are the prospects for fossil fuel divestment momentum at Ohio's colleges and universities? And he also asks about municipal or other bodies considering it. Chris, do you have any comments that you'd like to share in response to that?
Yeah, Bruce, we appreciate this question. I can't directly answer whether or not I'm not other municipal and other bodies that are considering divestment, but I just wanted to share briefly the importance of some legislation that is moving in the Ohio State House around this issue that would affect the ability of institutions that want to make this choice to divest much more difficult. So Senate Bill 6 actually directly prohibits this type of divestment. And so for folks who want to ensure that institutions have the ability to do this, that passed out of the Senate in the May. It hasn't moved in the Ohio House, but that piece of legislation would actually directly prohibit institutions from making that sort of financial choice for themselves. And then as well, Senate Bill 83 is a bill that fortunately, it sounds like the Ohio House has actually said we're not going to move this, but it passed out of the Senate as well. That would have prohibited institutions from making stances on climate change and a bunch of other issues as well. And so that sort of legislation would have also potentially impacted institutions like universities that would have wanted to make those sorts of decisions. So we can get back to you on, what other institutions may be exploring, but I just wanted to make sure that people were aware of those sorts of laws that are being proposed in this state house that are kind of really restricting the ability of institutions to make that sort of financial decision for themselves.
Thanks, Chris. And an excellent question from Bruce. I'm going to move us to a question around methane from Mary Beth Name. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. She asks, are efforts for methane reduction, like capping of abandoned wells, using data from satellite collection of methane emissions data? So Molly Jo, I know you've been close to that work. Do you have any information you can share in response to that question?
Thanks, Carol. And yeah, thanks, Mary Beth, for a really important question. The familiarity that I have with ODNR's process is specifically around aeromagnetic detection. That's seeking metals from satellite and drone imaging. And that helps to find wells that they wouldn't otherwise be able to find. But I don't know about satellite imaging for methane emissions specifically. I can drop in the chat a link to ODNR's program around orphan and abandoned well capping that has a lot of detailed information around the process. So I'll drop that in the chat. But we do know that they are very aware of the methane emissions and the importance of this program. So that's a really great question and something to continue following up on.
Yeah, thank you. And I will add that I do know there is a considerable effort to simply map where these wells are that are located on private land. So they're aware that there are thousands of wells on private land throughout the state that may not have been documented or mapped. So that's also a first step toward being able to cap them and reduce the emissions that they're working on. All right, a question. Now we're getting to a couple of questions related to water. We have one from Jan Oakley asking about CAFOs, so concentrated animal feeding operations. Jan asks, are we winning the fight against CAFOs? Are they increasing in the Maumee River watershed and other watersheds? Melanie, I thought you might have some updates for Jan on that question.
Yes, I wish we had our agriculture coordinator on with us today, but we are working on this issue in a lot of different ways. I don't know if it's safe to say whether we're winning the fight. We're kind of having the fight engaged in the work. And I will mention two kind of important things that we've worked on lately related to this. One was advocacy around what's called the total maximum daily load, or TMDL, which is a pollution reduction plan for the Maumee River Basin, which feeds, where most of the nutrient pollution is that feeds into Lake Erie. We have weighed in on that and advocated to the Ohio EPA, who produced that document, and also to the US EPA to try to strengthen that tool. We'll be continuing to monitor the implementation of that plan. And then more recently, we have been working on some comments related to what's called the Domestic Action Plan, which also deals with, again, nutrient pollution going into Lake Erie, and kind of looking at the different mechanisms and levers that the state agencies have, the three that I mentioned earlier, Ohio EPA, ODA, ODNR, to try to work to reduce that nutrient pollution problem. I mean, I think we're seeing really good programs. Obviously, I talked about them earlier through H2 Ohio, really great efforts. I think there have been reductions in years where we have less rain in the spring and less agricultural nutrient pollution running off. But we aren't seeing the kind of reductions that have been the targets, the 40% reduction that we, advocates and state agencies have agreed that we need to get to reduce those harmful algal blooms in a significant way. We aren't there yet. So we continue to work on that. And thank you very much for the question.
Yeah, great question. All right, let's see. I have another question from Mary Beth about climate and democracy. So she asks, how could a local Ohio organization focusing on democracy and climate change get involved with OEC? I feel like this is served up on a silver platter to you, Chris Tabner.
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is send me an email. Love to hear about what you're doing and how we can collaborate on work. I mean, and that goes, especially as we're ramping up to gather signatures for the Citizens Not Politicians campaign. Whether you're an organization or just an individual who's like, I want to gather 300 signatures over the next 3 months, talk to us and we'll figure out how to make sure that you're working with us, hanging out with OEC staff to do it. Gathering lots of signatures, talking to people about the importance of redistricting for when it and how that relates to environmental issues. That's our whole goal for the next year, is to get people realizing that the way that our districts are drawn matters, both for how communities that are impacted by environmental injustices are represented, but that also it impacts the way that policy moves in the State House as well. And so just shoot me an email. Somebody who has access to actually send a message to the whole chat can feel free to put my email address in the chat so that Mary Beth can reach out.
Great. Already done, Chris. Thanks for that question, Mary Beth. All right. I see one final question. There may be other stragglers that come in, but we do have one more outstanding question that we have time to address. And it is asking if members of the OEC can speak a bit more about our response to that train derailment in East Palestine earlier in the year. I know Melanie can certainly offer comments. We also have Chris Colon on the call, who is our Northeast Ohio Regional Director and was very involved and continues to be involved in that response. So could one of you or both of you comment a little bit more about that?
Carol, can you repeat the core piece of the question there related to East Palestine? Thank you.
I think they just were looking for a little bit more information about how we have responded to that incident in East Palestine.
Got it. Yeah, happy to kick off, and Chris can add some additional. So yes, it was February last year. We learned the news, I think, over the weekend and kind of quickly jumped into responsive mode. The work that we were doing was really trying to support and amplify the local community groups that were engaged on the issue. That largely ended up being River Valley Organizing. So I'll just highlight a couple of key things that we did to try to be supportive of the community and that terrible environmental catastrophe. So we went to the region and took water and some financial resources to help support. We directed a lot of news inquiry, would always provide first opportunity for the local community groups to respond. We pulled together our own information on our website and with our communications team to kind of update our members and provide information, factual information to the news media as well, and also engaged with lawmakers and decision makers. So that looked like going from going to Washington, D.C. and listening into one of the hearings on the East Palestine train derailment incident to being a part of a Senate, Ohio Senate roundtable to putting on a lawmaker briefing with a panel of experts for members of both the Ohio legislature and our Ohio congressional members. So we continue to kind of monitor and follow, some of the community's work, and we'll share one legislative win that we supported and helped to advocate for in partnership with the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Railmen, and that was to get some improved state level regulation related to trains and preventing future train derailments. So things like increased wayside detectors, a 2-person crew, and that sort of thing. So that was a really big policy accomplishment that came out of some of our advocacy. So thanks for the question.
Thanks, Melanie. The only thing, the additional I'll add in our response is, along with partners, Case Western Reserve, Environmental Law Clinic, our Randy Lepla there, Addison Caruso, along with Community Legal Aid, River Valley Organizing, and Fair Shake Environmental Legal Services. Over the past few months, we've been hosting environmental legal clinics in East Palestine. I've attended a number of those along with Chris Tavener, engaged the community on their questions around some of the legal needs. Had wonderful opportunities over and over again to meet residents of East Palestine and the multiple visits down there since I am less than 30 minutes away, and have had very rewarding experiences learning about the experience that they've had and how we've been able to support moving forward. We'll continue to monitor that from here in Northeast Ohio and continue to call out some of the legislative pieces as well.
Yep, that's great. Thank you, Melanie and Chris, for sharing more perspective on that. And I do want to say that the ability that we had to respond and also continue to be invested in that community for the long term, it's a great example of how our regional field team and the rest of our staff really work together with partners to be effective and thoughtful in the response that we've made. So I definitely saw the benefits of the investments that we've made in Chris and in that region and in other parts of the state as we were able to respond effectively there. So kind of continuing the questions around regional efforts, I did see another question come up for Kylie or Brian. Can you share a little bit more about the work you're doing to advance climate action at the local level in Cincinnati and Cleveland? So Kylie or Brian, would you like to turn your camera on and offer a couple of comments?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So as Emily mentioned, we had a really exciting year with the Green Cincinnati Plan adoption back in April, and now we're into the implementation phase. So really looking at all of those different 40 goals and strategies and priority actions that we have for the plan, and then figuring out how we're going to work together as a community to actually achieve those goals, strategies, and actions over the next 5 years. So the OEC has been working with the Office of Environment Sustainability and have identified several different priority actions that we will champion to help move forward. A lot of those related to the community activation focus area, which I chaired throughout the process. So really excited to work on a lot of activities related to advocacy, education, and outreach with that plan. Also working with Green Umbrella, our now regional climate collaborative in the area, actually leading a civic engagement workshop later for some of their climate incubator cohort students, and really excited to work with a lot of the other partners here to move climate action forward.
Great. And Brian, we have a couple minutes if you'd like to share from Cleveland.
Absolutely. Thank you for your question. So we've had the opportunity to support the city of Cleveland in their climate action, doing their new climate action plan. We have a great relationship with the mayor and his administration. Like Kylie, what they're doing in Cincinnati, we've been working with the director of sustainability for the past year or so since she assumed the role, and trying to both accomplish goals and for the Cleveland Comprehensive Policy Platform, and helping them develop their plan. And they're currently having focus groups coming up in the next month or so to try to help solicit opinion from that. So we're helping them with that. And we're looking forward to continuing to work with the Department of Sustainability in achieving that.
Great. Thank you. This was wonderful to hear from each of you. We have time for just one final question. We did have a question from Krista McGaugh, who asked, how's the Action Fund doing? I think this was probably because Krista is also serving on the board of our sister organization, the OEC Action Fund. And we will simply point you to the website for the OEC Action Fund for anyone who would like to learn more about that organization and its work. You can find that link in the chat. It's the oecactionfund.org. And they do a lot of exciting work to build the power of the environmental and political movement in the state of Ohio. All right. Well, with that, we are going to wrap up our annual meeting. We thank you so much for your membership, for your support, for the wonderful engagement on this call and the thoughtful questions, and look forward to continuing to work together to advance our priorities in 2024 and beyond. So thank you all and have a wonderful day.